Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. Now, I just want to say a big thank you for your faithful viewership through the years. Right now, we're going on our third year of doing this whole program, and the responses, the engagement has been fantastic. I got to say this, that the idea from the very beginning was that we wanted to reach the Nigerian, not just the Nigerian in the urban centers like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Kano, but also those in the villages, in the remote areas with actionable, understandable information about health. And we've tried to be faithful to that as much as possible. Once in a while, we bring in this high tech, this latest advances, some professor of medicine, for instance. Oh, by the way, we are going to have a professor of medicine, but it's going to be broken down in a way you can understand. And some of the most gratifying things I've seen over the years of us doing this is that people have just become really, really engaged, especially during this COVID-19 period. It seems like, and if you can say any good thing that has come out of this COVID-19 period, at least from where I stand, is that more and more people have really come to watch our show. In fact, I was told recently that our show, Health in Your Hands, is the third most watched show online. So fantastic. Good job, guys. Thank you so much for staying with us. But the most important thing, folks, is that we would have failed in our task and our purpose if you don't change. If it's just a show you watch and you don't actually act on the information that is given to you, we have failed. At least I would have considered we failed in our duty to you. So please take notes, listen carefully, and then act on these things that you see and you hear. And get back with us if you have any questions, and so we can put you through. So, deal? All right, awesome. Now, today on the show, we have some very special guests. I'm really excited. So I'm going to read out their bio. Actually, it's not a bio. They have just a brief, talk about who they are. So they are called Tifal and Chi. Toyin, Tifal, is an infectious disease physician and professor of medicine and regional medical director. She is also an author and podcaster. Chioma, the Chi part, is a healthcare director at Medallia. You're going to tell us what that means. He is also a health and wellness coach and fitness trainer. Together, the Waffles have 4 children. Boy, you guys are busy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, Tifal and Chi, tell us about that.
Yes. So, gosh, where do we start? Thank you so much, Dr. Ajibade, for having us on your show. So, Toye, Tifal, lots to talk about, but really, like you said, right now in the US, as a professor of medicine, infectious diseases, a regional medical director, and I write, I podcast. I'm now a wellness coach with my husband, Chioma, here, but way before then, and Chioma will tell you, is that grew up in Ibadan, grew up on UI campus. We actually both did. And like you mentioned, our parents were both on UI campus, but really, I was born in the US, but grew up in Nigeria and went to all of my education on the University of Ibadan campus, from staff school to ISI to UI to UCH. So all of my primary, secondary, tertiary education, medical school education, everything happened in Nigeria, in Ibadan, pretty much.
Yes, you must have been very happy to finally leave Ibadan, I'm sure.
Well, not, it was time to explore different things. And so I came to the US for residency and fellowship training. And I've been in Chicago, the last 27 years, actually, since graduating from med school. So that's my journey. Grew up in Ibadan, very excited to be back on, to be on your show, to be able to talk to people where I grew up, my Nigerian people.
I'm a healthcare director at Medallia. Is a technology company. So where we use technology to enhance the health of people in healthcare. So especially, my focus is around providers and payers and trying to, mitigate, spread of chronic diseases within populations of people within their membership. So that's what I do. I'm going to share more about my work and things I've done with large corporations like ExxonMobil and Cisco Petroleum, different oil and gas companies out there, where designing treatment plans for people with chronic diseases and so on and so forth. But our journey culminated when my wife and I got married to build up what we call today the T-Fal and Yhiyh movement.
Yes,
that's coming together with my wife. That's how this business came together. As you can see, we're wearing a merch. This is the design of what we put together.
We're going to show mine too.
Oh, okay.
Right there, folks.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Yeah. So, go ahead, honey.
No. And just, the T-Fal and Yhiyh, both of us in our personal lives and our public professional lives, very interested in wellness and healthy living and empowering people to be their best selves, right? To be their best and healthiest selves. And so this was just a natural way. And so our merchandise is a way to promote the message, but we'll talk a little bit about what it is. But our mission is really imparting knowledge and in a practical and intentional way to help people make the best decisions around their health, empowering them to take charge of their health, and really empowering them to be the best versions of themselves. Because health is wealth. Absolutely.
Music to my ears. That's what we're all about at the Brain and Body Foundation, and that's what this show is all about. So fantastic. Yes. Now, we're going to take a short break at this point, folks, and then we will be right back. So don't go away. And we're back. All right. So T-Fal and Yhiyh. Tell us why. Why are you doing this?
Very interesting. I think for me and for us, a lot of it has to do with just seeing people that we know, people we've known in our age group or even younger, developing some of these chronic conditions where all of a sudden you're hearing about this person had a stroke, this person had, heart stuff, and we're talking about people in their 40s, sometimes early 50s. And you've kind of seen, in our work, and that too, David, that Dr. Ajibade, that a lot of times, we really have people who have medical conditions, and all of a sudden we're seeing some of these complications of these medical conditions. We see people who have not been adherent with care, they're not, but we also know that some of it happens with what happens outside of the clinic or in the hospital, right? And that we haven't done as a profession, I believe, the best around what happens when people are not in the room with us, right? We write a script, we write the stuff, but no matter how often you engage with care, if you're fortunate enough to engage with care a couple of times a year, the vast majority of your health is what you do when you're not in the clinic, right? Even if you came to clinic once a month. So really starting to see that the patients that did the best in my field were the ones who had a comprehensive approach, that had help outside of the clinic, that really took charge of their health education, that wanted to know more, that challenged the physician and asked you a lot of questions and always said, what else can I do? You've written this for me. What else can I do? And when it starts to hit home with people or your friends, that's kind of like, wow, we really need to really be conscious about what we put into our body, how we put it in, when we put it in. So it started to hit home. That was the personal thing, I think, for me. And then also because Yhiyh here has such a background in a lot of things around nutrition and wellness, more than I did, and I'm learning from him every day, was that even though I considered myself very healthy, I still had a lot of, I would have joint aches and bloating, things that you kind of think happen when you turn 40 or when you turn 50. And then when you start to eat a certain way and understand inflammation and the importance of your gut microbiome and how much what you put in matters, I have never felt better. I feel better than I did at 30 and at 40. Yes, wow. I'm 50. I feel better, my skin, my joints, and a lot of it has to do with changing. So I would hear, even though he'd had clients years and years before me doing this work in the wellness, I was a personal client, and wow. I can tell you the impact is phenomenal. So some of it was my profession, some of it was friends and people developing chronic diseases, people in my age group thinking that it was okay to be on 3 or 4 meds. But my personal story of how I feel by watching how I eat, what I eat, when I eat.
Yeah.
Personal testimony for me. And I want to share that with other people.
Yeah. And
if I may just jump in here. Now, you're an infectious disease doctor, professor.
Yes.
And like many other doctors, and I think you already answered the question, because most doctors, even though they see all these numbers, I'm sorry to say, they don't think as much in terms of the natural of interventions by way of what you are trying to do with the whole T-file and Chi brand, which, by the way, we need to have a succinct description of what this whole T-file and Chi brand and movement is all about. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm sure we're going to get there. But Chi, go ahead. Let's hear your part.
Sure. And so just segueing, to what and where this started for me. My wife talked about, a friend, people we know, chronic diseases and things like that. I started, my drive started as a young kid. I was the skinniest kid you could find in class. So if you remember that skeleton in your class, you had to learn all the bones in the body. That was me in your class, just staring at you. If you hugged me, you're like, oh my gosh, where did all these bones come from? That's how skinny I was, right? And you're always afraid of people bullying you and things like that. And I never felt well. I just never did. I always had migraines and just feeling overwhelmed all the time, I had epileptic seizures as a kid, even, I had epileptic seizures. Actually I stammered as a kid, but I outgrew it. So through all this happening, I was on antibiotics for almost 2-3 years straight without going off them because I was just sick all the time. So as I became a teenager, I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I decided to take my own health into my own hands as I just grew a little older. And I decided, what can I do to change the trajectory of my health? What can I do? So I started thinking, how can I change my cell structure? And you have to change the inside for something to happen on the outside. So I started to change the way I eat, started learning, started teaching myself, doing a lot of research around food and how you connect food with exercise and movement and rest and sleep and mental health. Just connecting all those together to become the best version of me. And when I learned that, I felt I could share with other people and teach them how to become the best versions of themselves. Each time I moved to a different state or a different city in the United States, I would set up boot camps for people in the community and teach them how to be healthy, talk to them about health and wellness. Then, working in corporate America, working for oil and, consulting for oil and gas companies and things like that. So it was just that kind of drive, because as you continue to do this, you're going to see how the numbers rise exponentially. In the United States, the obesity rate in the United States is about 40-50%. In Nigeria, correct. In Nigeria,
like CDC,
CDC. And in Nigeria, we're turning around 20-30. We're so much better. So that's why we at T-File, we want to be able to reach our own people so they don't get to the point of where we are today in the United States. It is horrendous. It just go, and the cost is exponential. So if we can break that cycle and teach people, we want to be into prevention. You, Dr. Ajibade, you talked about, my wife being the, infectious disease physician and doctors not talking about this. It's true that sometimes you find that there is a disconnect between what the doctor is prescribing and what the person is actually doing at home, or what the doctor knows about what they're doing at home. And we want to fill that gap,
Right. Well, that's fantastic. And but of course, as you know, we Africans, especially we Nigerians, we feel that the looking big and is a sign of good living and attractiveness to either sex. What do you? I mean, the more there is to see, the more there is to love, right? So why would you want us to?
Because you know what, and that's one of those things. You're right. It used to be a sign of good living. If a guy got married, if he didn't get a pot belly in 3 months, his wife was failing on the job, right?
Yes.
It was a sign. Yeah, it was a sign of. But what we know, like, and once you know better, like you say, you got to do better, right? We know that obesity and a large waist circumference is clearly linked to medical conditions, right? So it's beyond cosmetic. And for women, we can always, get the Spanx and get the things to do it, but it is beyond the cosmetic. So that's an excellent point, Dr. Ajibade, but we now know better, right? It used to be that obesity or big waist was a sign of good living. In Nigeria, we say, well, if it doesn't have a pot belly, but if we think about it, it's beyond the cosmetics of obesity. And in Nigeria, we have the garb, you can wear your agbada, the girls can wear the boo-boos, you can do the Spanx, but we do know that it is harming us, right? That waist circumference, that extra fat is stored in our liver, it's stored in the organs. It's a big predictor of heart disease and stroke and cardiovascular disease. And if you actually think about it, some people say, why don't you see so many obese people over the age of 70 or 80? A lot of them died before then. There is a survival bias when you look at people who live that long. And obesity is beyond, like we said, the cosmetics. It's a sign of the risk for heart disease, stroke, cardiovascular disease, a whole bunch of things, liver disease, but also early death and some cancers. There's at least, so many cancers now
25 cancers
linked to obesity. And then in terms of musculoskeletal issues and having to get weights, and you always talk about for every pound.
For every pound of weight that we gain is 4 pounds of pressure on our joint.
Yeah.
So it's not just even the cancers and all the other cardiovascular diseases, but also musculoskeletal problems where you have to have knee. Your knees changed out, spinal fusions, laminectomies, and things like that. And so it comes a myriad of diseases and complications. When we just think we kind of isolate obesity and just say people just know it is actually one of those things that actually trigger a multiple events that come down.
And the COVID really helped us see that. The COVID really helped us see obesity. We've known it as a chronic medical condition, but in terms of risk for hospitalization, risk for death, risk for poor outcomes, chronic morbidity, everything, obesity, apart from older age, is the single biggest predictor of a hospitalization. And in all the countries in the world and within the US, people with obesity had a higher rate of all of those complications. And when you start to look at younger people under 40 or 50 who were hospitalized with COVID, 80% of them were obese. So it's something to know. And because you talk about inflammation a lot, you talk about gut microbiome on your show, you talk about the importance of gut health. Obese people are more likely to have a very narrow range of bacteria within their gut that's associated with weight. Obesity is a chronic inflammatory process. We know inflammation is bad. Obesity, those fat cells are not metabolically quiet. They're active and they're interfacing with your immune system all the time. So it's something that we talk about, and really talking about prevention and helping people in terms of weight, but also talking about prevention and how you can prevent the rise in obesity and some of those outcomes that are associated with it.
Correct.
Absolutely. And that thing about COVID-19 has really, like you said, has really brought it out to the front. So obesity is one of the issues. But the Fab Five is not just about obesity, is it?
No, it's not.
So when we come back, I want you to give us a description of what really are the Fab Five. Okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Let's
see you soon.
Okay.
All right, welcome back, folks. We are with Tifal and Yhiyh, Chioma and Toyin, and they are health coaches. They're much more than that, but we're talking about health right now, and they're going to talk to us about their whole approach towards health. And I think it's pretty simple and straightforward. I mean, I've had a lot of interaction with them. So, Yhiyh, let's hear it. What are the Fab Five?
Of course. So I'm just standing here. This is a backdrop, and on a backdrop you can see this diamond shape here. my wife and I sat down one day and figured, how can we bring together the, these diseases that are responsible for almost all, behavioral, conditions that we do get. So we figured the first one that you see on this list is blood pressure. You can measure your blood pressure, at home. You can measure it at different pharmacies. You can have it checked at your doctors. So this has been, checking your blood pressure, not something that will cost you money to do, right? Yes. So we have to see, no matter where you are in the world, you can make this something you can do
in fact, I encourage every corporate business when I go out and speak and do health seminar. Every business, every government agency should have a place where they can check the blood pressure. It's not a big deal, folks.
Yeah.
You need to have a blood pressure measurement then. All right.
Yeah. So and the next one you have is cholesterol. Cholesterol is very, very important that you understand what your cholesterol levels are. Your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, LDL, the bad cholesterol. Very important, because those are the things that block arteries and cause, heart disease and so on and so forth. BMI, your body mass index. So that, takes into account your weight to your height, the ratio of your weight to your height. All right. You can use any calculator, any phone, any cell phone, any computer. You can just put in BMI and you get your BMI.
Yes.
You want to be below 29.5 at all times. Blood sugar, blood glucose, all the same, right? So in that, a lot of times back home we say, what is my sugar? The doctor says my sugar is high.
Yeah.
You just, what is your blood glucose, right? And your waist circumference. What is your waist circumference? You can use just a regular tape measure to measure that. It's very important that you check your waist circumference at all, frequently, because for the most part, your organs are around this area. The bigger we get around this area, our kidneys, our liver are suffering.
Yes.
So it's important. So these are the five. That's what behind how fab. And what we mean how fab is how great are those numbers for you.
Are you at goal?
So,
and we'll be, we'll be happy. We'll be back to talk a little bit more in depth about that. But those five we'll talk about more. And if you think about it, everybody in Nigeria has their own tailor. So our waist circumference is measured all the time, all the time. We just, we kind of keep changing. And, a lot of places, like you said, you can get a blood pressure done, you can get a finger stick. The only one that may be a little challenging is a cholesterol. There are lots of point of care tests for sugar. Everybody tests, you can do that. Your BMI, we'll talk people, everybody can put in height and weight. So if you think about it, 4 out of 5 of those can be done in any primary care setting, a pharmacy, an office space where for employees to do that. In the marketplace, point of care testing, the waist circumference, all of those things. The cholesterol may be the fifth one. We'll talk about why we chose those and what they mean, right? How do you connect these to a lot of outcomes? And we'll be happy to do that when we come back.
Fantastic. And we would love to have you come back. So folks, we're going to have to take the break to end this particular episode today, but they will be back next week to really go into each of these steps in the Fab Five in detail, so you really understand what exactly that means. And I know how people always have these questions about why they're important and all that, and they tend to be careless. But once you really understand why each of these is important, then it will hopefully motivate you to take the right action. So we'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay strong. God bless. Bye.
Great.